everyone has weaknesses. And
Mhm.
even though ADHD symptoms seem to bring a lot of them, the strengths outweigh them when they're accommodated properly.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Heart Inspired, the show dedicated to highlighting individuals in their pursuit of authentic leadership. We peel back the layers to uncover the roadblocks we all face, explore the actions we can take, and how to persevere towards the best version of ourselves. It is my hope that you'll be inspired by their story and gain some insights to help you in your own journey. Samantha Sanders knows a lot about social media and recruiting. As someone who has hopped from job to job, Samantha is an advocate for hiring workers with soft skills. In this episode, Samantha will share how it's like being neurodiverse, a mom, a military wife, while managing a career. She's doing it all. Please welcome my guest, Samantha Sanders. Welcome, Samantha. Welcome to the show today. I'm excited to have you here. You're all the way on the other side of the world. So the beauty of having Zoom and all these connections to be able to speak to people from all over the world. So that's the first part. But when we first met, we talked about you're a military wife, you're a mom, and you're a career person and much more. In this series that we're talking about diversity and how we navigate through those, even if there is one in our own family or in our lives. So let me turn it over to you, Samantha, and tell us a little bit about what you're doing today as a military wife. What's that like, and being a mom?
Yeah, so I'm a Navy spouse, and we're stationed over here in Japan. And I have 3 boys under the age of 6.
Oof.
Yeah, I mean, being here, it's wonderful. I mean, it's secluded at the same time, so there's pros and cons about everything,
Yeah.
But yeah, a little bit about me. I was the job hopper for 11 years, and I was a 3-time college dropout, each for different industries, different majors. I couldn't land my foot into anything really other than customer service and retail for about 11 years or so. And
Wow.
I was tired of just having a job. I
Mm.
wanted to have a career, something that I felt proud of, something like what my husband has. So I focused on reskilling and upskilling in project management and recruiting. Project management didn't exactly pan out. It wasn't as flexible as I thought it was going to be. So I solely focused on recruiting. And now I'm an external IT recruiter for Mission Box Solutions, which is a certified disabled veteran-owned small business. And it's a recruiting firm. And we focus on matching talent to innovative companies through experience, culture, and persona.
That's amazing. Did you find them? Did they find you? What was the connection there?
So I actually started using my LinkedIn. I had it for years. Everybody used LinkedIn just to
Yeah.
find a job in the beginning, right? That's kind of how I did it. I reactivated my LinkedIn, and I actually have a background in social media strategy. I ran my own virtual assistance agency for 2 years. I blew up on LinkedIn out of nowhere, and
Wow.
they actually found me. So
That's amazing. What was it that you did in your profile that it blew up? And were there recruiters coming after you, or what was it?
So there's a lot of different things that I did. I optimized my profile. I created a content strategy plan. I posted about things that were important to me as a military spouse for
Mm.
ADHD awareness. I just offered help to people that needed it. If they landed in my inbox, anytime somebody accepted a connection request for me, I always said, hey, thanks for accepting my connection request. If you need anything, let me know. And I think that was a big thing. People just liked that the stuff that I was posting was not just to find a job. It was to bring awareness to things people don't normally hear about.
So you've been diagnosed, and tell us about that, because when we spoke, it was kind of you stumbled upon it, right? Being diagnosed with ADHD. Is that
Yes.
correct? Yeah.
Yes, I was the one of many that self-diagnosed from watching a TikTok. Believe it
And
or
we
not.
always say, don't go to the internet to self-diagnose, and here you are on TikTok. That's amazing. So tell us more.
what part of the reason I was a job hopper was I would get fired, or I get bored at my job,
Mm,
or I was forced to resign one time. It was usually a work at will state, so they could fire you for any reason.
yeah,
And
unfortunately.
and me management did not usually go well. I would usually forget things to
Mm,
lock up a certain part of the store, or just little things that would add up, or I wouldn't understand instructions the way that they explained it. And I always thought that that was just my personality, not that there was something else going on in there. And so when I saw
okay.
this TikTok, it brought some light to my personality and why I do the things that I do. And I never really thought of it that way. So here I was about to turn 30,
Mm,
and I realized, well, heck, I think I have ADHD. I probably related to 95% of the symptoms.
wow, that's a lot. So did you seek professional diagnosis after that?
Yes, I am now on medication for it, for my
Okay.
hyperfocus. And since I've been on medication, things have been going a lot better for me.
More focused?
More focused, better energy, better mood, a better plan, and I kind of know where I'm going now, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, so you were feeling not only just lack of focus, but lost, kind of like which direction to go in, what should I be focusing on? During this time, did you have all three of your children?
I did. I actually developed a lot of extra symptoms, probably because I had children, the
Mm,
stress of the family, and all, all of that. But, being diagnosed with ADHD, what it was like before then versus now, not knowing what I had
mm,
made it seem like my personality wasn't matched with anywhere that I worked. No matter what I did, no matter what different job I had, I would always lose interest, or, I'd become really good at it and then just quit.
yeah.
Or have all these different ideas running through my mind, and I would, have shiny object syndrome.
Oh, yeah. We all have that at some point or another, but yours was probably a little bit more elevated, correct?
Correct. Yes. Yes, 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 yes. And through that, it affected my experience, my resume, my self-worth, my
Mm.
ability to get a decent paying job. And it also affected my personal life. I remember when my husband and I first started dating, he felt the need to apologize on behalf of me.
Oh, that's interesting. How did that make you feel?
It made me feel a little irritated in the beginning.
Yeah.
I think I eventually got used to it, and then he eventually just stopped because that's just how I was. But it's because I've always been very blunt. And that's part of ADHD, which I never realized in the beginning. And part of that is what you're saying, but you don't realize how you're saying it. So
Mm,
to me, it sounds completely harmless when I say it, but to somebody else, it sounds like they just got the third degree.
yeah, pretty harsh. Yeah.
Right. And I was diagnosed earlier this year. So, and things have changed a lot for me. I was able to understand why I do certain things that I thought
Mm,
was normal. I'm able to control some of the symptoms with the medication. And then I can use apps and processes for other symptoms that I have difficulty leveling out. I started also being open about ADHD in meetings and interviews. And I think
yeah.
that helped me when I was brought about to Mission Box Solutions. I wanted a company and team that could understand that I need accommodations to be successful.
That's really smart because people today, and you know from being a recruiter, the only thing they have to go by if a candidate is the right one is, or going on to the next level, is that piece of paper. And that doesn't tell the whole story, but it's in the interview process that they get to know who you are and learn about how you will absorb and learn information.
Correct. And you really, as a recruiter, you really don't know if that person was a right hire until about 2, 3, 4 months after hiring.
Yeah, because you're kind of putting your best foot forward. Everything's kind of like the honeymoon stage until they start to get deep into projects and goals and things like that.
I also wanted to bring awareness to some of these recruiters and hiring managers that ADHD people are extremely unique and hardworking. When I am set up for success,
Yeah.
I am the hardest worker you probably ever met. I'm not sure, but everyone has weaknesses. And even though ADHD symptoms seem to bring a lot of them, the strengths outweigh them when they're accommodated properly. And now I work alongside the CEO of Mission Box Solutions, and I'm the hardest working person we have. I've helped build everything that they have so far.
Well, congratulations to you. That's really great. And what a testament to, the hard work you put in and being able to course correct for yourself so that you can be successful. What happens in a day when you start to realize, like, does it all of a sudden kick in that you recognize that there's something off, and what are some of the vices or things that you do to just kind of course correct and get yourself back in focus? Is there anything, or is it just the medication?
Actually, I use a website called brain.fm,
Okay.
and it is made for people that are neurodiverse to kind of help them get back on track. It has specific levels of music that are for a different type of focus, for a more creative focus, a study focus, work focus, and I actually like to listen to that while I work. And before I work, I like to sit down, put it on, close my eyes, and listen to it and take a few really deep breaths.
Oh, that's awesome. What's the site again? I want to make sure we put it in the show notes for others.
Brain.fm. It helps my brain transition from one thing to the next.
Interesting. So you definitely do you have challenge with not just focus, but in change? When things change in an organization, or if there's a policy change or procedure change, does that throw you off?
Yes. Normal day-to-day chaos, I'm completely fine with. Actually, it's kind of funny that I thrive in chaos typically.
Me too.
When something is a specific type of process and I have to learn the ins and outs of that, and I have to do that same process every day, for it to change is very difficult for me.
One of the things that you and I talked about, which I found quite interesting, is that you're also not only neurodiverse and you're taking medication to balance that, but you're also creative. How does that work, and how does that help you in your day-to-day? And what kind of creativity are you engaged in?
It helps me both in my personal and professional. Personal life, I like drawing, I like crocheting, I like anything crafty. I could walk through a store and think of $100 million ideas right off the top of my head. I just constantly think of ideas. I'm like, oh, that would be a really good thing to, that'd be a really good business. But I haven't never able to implement it. However, I do write a lot of things down. I am also creative in the sense I'm a very, very fast learner when it's hands-on and I'm interested in it.
Yeah.
I actually took a class on drawing, never been able to draw in my life past stick figures. I took this class for 2 weeks, didn't even finish the class, and I can draw realism now.
Wow. So there's a part of the brain that really kicks in for you.
Right. And when I'm interested in something, especially if it's something creative, I become obsessive. I get that hyper focus, and I literally can't pull myself away from it until I can't even see straight anymore. So there are pros and cons to being able to like start different projects.
Yeah.
However, my problem is finishing the project. So I like to change hobbies.
Oh, okay.
There should be a subscription box for me because I change it so often. So I'm good. I'm good at a lot of things. I'm kind of the Jane of all trades, good at all, master of none.
Yeah, I like that. Jane of all trades. Yeah.
Yeah.
As a recruiter, you've job hopped, you have experienced your own challenge with either resigning for boredom, being let go, parting ways for mutual whatever it is. You've got a lot of that experience firsthand. Tell us some of the things that recruiters or hiring managers should know, for those who may be listening to this episode, when they're screening or having an interview or looking at a resume that may have several jobs on there, but their experience is there. What are some of the tips that you can share?
Soft skills. Hard skills are great, but they're not going to tell you how that person will work. A
Yeah.
candidate will have all the experience in the world, but will you enjoy working with them? Are they going to be open to learning more skills? Will they even fit into the culture your company or team has created?
Mm-hmm.
Soft skilled workers are known to get up to speed quicker and be more adaptable and agile than hard skilled workers. Think also about what a person's potential history says about them. People with ADHD are great at team motivation, risk-taking, creativity, short-term projects, and learning new skills extremely fast.
And those things are only going to come to light in an interview. So are there things on a resume that either A, someone who has ADHD should be putting on there, other than spelling it out, that would bring more light to their, or opportunity for them to get that interview as a candidate?
I really like to put on mine intellectual curiosity. I don't know if that helps any. It really depends on the recruiter and the hiring manager and what the team's looking for. But I would say to get really good at storytelling. So if you have similar experience to another candidate and they're trying to choose between the two, if you're a really good storyteller and you showcase that through your cover letter, you're gonna win.
The challenge I see today, and maybe you can tell me, cover letters are, it's like 50-50. Do you add them? Some companies require, some don't. What we hear a lot is that recruiters don't even look at it. They're looking at the resume, the keywords, all of those things. So would that be something that would be best put in the about section of their LinkedIn profile?
Yes, I think that it would be. I know that for myself, as a recruiter, I do look at the about only after I've looked at the experience. In nowadays, honestly, resumes they're kind of a thing of the past. Yes, they're obviously required, but they're kind of becoming this thing that's just a nuisance. Anybody can drastically upscale the resume.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I mean, we're told not to put, cash handling experience or, handle to register, just for something simple to talk about. But then they have to reword it that sounds something so amazing it doesn't even sound anything close
Yeah.
to cash handling.
Yeah.
So they're dramatically overstated now. And it's hard to tell what experience they really have, because you are now taught that it has to sound extravagant
And relevant.
and relevant.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I remember when I was writing my resume, I had somebody help me with it originally. One of my stories was about how I worked at Domino's, and I was like 19 years old. The label printer was broken and I had to, create an assembly line to get the pizzas out the door on time. Otherwise, without the label, the pizza's free.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Well, man, how he had me rewrite it did not sound like, I mean, yes, it did at the same time, but that is not what I would pull from it if I was reading it. If you're on LinkedIn and you're active on LinkedIn, a recruiter is going to look at your activity. They're going to look at some of the things that you post. They're going to look at about me, your headline, all of that. And that's why I teach in my network. I teach job seekers how to optimize their profile to get the job they want.
It's something I do as well with our resume writer. First of all, we do a full deep dive as to tell us everything you've done, even if it sounds, minute or whatever, because what they have on their existing resume may not be relevant, or they may not have added things that are really valuable. So we make sure that we bring those things to light. But I think the LinkedIn part of it is where they can do more storytelling and kind of show a little bit more about their personality. Would you say that recruiters, hiring managers, especially in tech companies, are more open and accepting to looking at candidates who are neurodiverse, who may have other disabilities that many other cases may be overlooked?
I think since I started announcing it in interviews, I've found that there are more people than we think that either think they have it or they have it. And when you have that relatability there, it's like, oh, somebody's just like me,
Yeah.
And it's kind of a breath of fresh air. And if you can't relate to them on that note, I find that a majority of the people that I interviewed with when I was a job seeker, they at least knew somebody on the team that had it. I
Yeah.
think that they're open to it. I think that
Mhm.
they just are uneducated. A
Mm.
lot of hiring managers, they don't understand what it's really like, which is, of course, that's a given.
Yeah.
But when I was growing up, ADHD was just for super hyper kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not what it wasn't what it is today. And before, after that, between my teen years, ADHD was lazy people, it's
Mm.
evolving as people are becoming more educated.
Do you think that companies are casting a broad enough net? Or is it that people who, like you, diagnosed on TikTok may not even know? So there's that frustration of, I'm not going to apply because it's just not going to work. What's the solution, if there is one, to cast a broader net, to bring on talent like yourself into an organization that may have just a different way of learning and absorbing information?
Currently, recruiting is very small-minded, and that has
Mm,
mostly to do with the company leaders. For a
mm,
business to survive right now, they need to be adaptable and agile to new ideas,
mm.
especially when it comes to bringing on and leading a team. Disabilities, whether it's mental or physical, are typically seen as a hindrance and a burden to others.
Oh, that's so smart. Say that again.
Disabilities,
Yep.
whether mental or physical, are typically seen as a hindrance and burden to others,
And so if a
especially
recruiter doesn't
mental.
have that experience like you have,
Mhm.
are they typically looking for people who, oh, they'll fit into the culture rather than complement the culture?
I don't think so. If they're not educated on it or if they don't know anybody that has it, I
Mm,
think that they are not looking for that and don't know how to look for it
yeah,
and don't know how to accommodate it. Especially for mental, you can't see it and it's difficult for an outsider to understand it
yeah.
or to notice when somebody needs help to grow professionally. Many times we don't even know how to express how we need help. And I actually read in an article recently about a man who was working as a home satellite installer. He had ADHD, but nobody in his company knew, not as his hiring manager, nothing. He was their worst employee. He was actually about to get fired. He would constantly lose tools when he got to the houses. He would do well in the start of the installation, and then it would start to drop off as he was starting to get wrapped up. And then they would have to send somebody out later to fix those mistakes. So he was costing the company money, he was costing himself money because he had to replace the tools
And
and
possibly a new job.
possibly a new job.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
when his manager came up to him and asked him, what is going on? Why aren't you getting this? He said, I have ADHD and I can't remember certain things. I can't remember how to get to certain places. I have no concept of time. And when he learned this, he did his own research. The
The
manager did.
boss? Oh, really?
Boss did,
Okay.
yes. And from then on, the boss would call him during the installation process to
Okay.
remind his employee not to forget his tools. not to forget this step. And then he would call him at the end, not to forget his tools. It's probably right there because he always left it in the same
Oh
spot.
my gosh, like an accountability coach all the way
Almost
through.
like an accountability coach. And you
Yeah,
know what? Within a few months, that
yeah.
employee went from being the worst employee they had that was about to get fired to the top in the region
Holy cow. So for
because he was set up
listeners,
for success.
yeah, that just goes to show that with a little bit of compassion and dedication to help mentor and coach and find ways to have that employee absorb information and learn, you can really have a lot more stars in the organization. Plus it costs money to keep each time you change, replace somebody,
Right.
So,
Right.
wow, that's really awesome.
Right. And I've actually had similar experiences myself. I have
Mm.
a hard time remembering things. I have zero concept of time. If it wasn't for my phone reminding me when I have meetings 5 minutes beforehand, I'd be lost.
And that's probably more common for a lot of folks, but we may be in denial of what it really is, what it really means.
Right. And
Yeah.
when I'm set up for that success, when somebody who's overseeing me takes that little bit of extra effort,
Mm.
then I skyrocket.
And it doesn't cost much, 30 seconds of somebody's time to be there as a mentor or coach, even if it's just accountability. You're like, it's like having a human checklist. Tell us 3 things that we should know when hiring, leading, and mentoring someone with invisible diversity like yourself.
First, be completely open to it. Most people will not disclose they have a mental disability, and even more may not know that they even have it.
Mm.
Stress during the entire process that you're willing to go to lengths to accommodate someone's needs so they can be successful, and show it on a daily basis. When your team feels comfortable is when they'll start opening up.
Mm.
Second, if you know anyone on your team who has an invisible disability, research it on your own about ways that you can accommodate them and be able to recognize the signs if they do have it and either may not know it or disclose it. I know for ADHDers, we tend to get burnt out really quickly because we are constantly energized and hyper-focused. So consider giving your team mental health days where they can take a day off to recoup. I've seen some companies have that where you don't have to put a reason. You're just saying taking a
Yeah.
mental health day, and they'll
More
get
and
back.
more, yeah, more and more adding that beyond the PTO that they get today. Absolutely. That's great advice.
And then the third would be use inclusive language on your job descriptions. Showcase your team and encourage them to show how accommodating your company is to them. This brings awareness to mental health in many
Mm.
aspects, whether it's depression, anxiety, or something else. And it's going to attract more and better quality candidates because people want to feel belonged and that they have a purpose where they work.
So smart.
Remember
That's
that
really
story that
great.
I told you about the manager? He spent a lot of time and energy helping out his employee, but his return was tenfold because one, he didn't have to spend time and money firing and rehiring and training.
Yeah.
Two, he gained a new understanding of the world around him. And three, the employee gave him an extremely high ROI.
Which is the end goal, is to make somebody feel included and then also remain profitable and healthy in the organization, whatever healthy looks like for them. Thank you so much for reminding me of those. I now have to make sure that I keep this in mind when I'm focusing on or having a conversation with someone who has either ADHD or other neurodiverse, what would it be? Neurodiverse learning or neurodiverse situations? What would be the right terminology there?
Normally, you would say with neurodiversity.
With neurodiversity. Well, Samantha, you have really shed some very interesting light on something that, we're hearing more and more about in the workplace. We think about diversity and inclusion today, and it has a lot to do with, race, gender, etc., but all the biases we have. But having invisible diversity is really something that we need to educate ourselves more and more on. There's a lot of people who, like yourself, may not have been diagnosed at a young age, and had tools or medicine, if needed, to help regulate that. So I really thank you for bringing a lot of this stuff to light and educating the listeners on this. Let me ask you this before we close out. What's the hardest part? Is it because you're obviously a US citizen and you're living in Japan. Is the hardest part being overseas, being a military wife, being a mom of 3 boys under the age of 6, I think you said, or being a career person who navigates with ADHD? Is one more difficult than the other?
I mean, being a parent is hard in itself. It's driving me nuts. I mean, I love them, but they're all toddlers. So I would say it's probably a tie between being a military spouse and being a mom of 3 littles. And then on top of that, it just takes the cake with being neurodiverse.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate you sharing vulnerable. You shared a lot about your challenges, and I think that's really brave. But thank you so much for doing that. I wish you all the best. We'll definitely stay in touch. We will put some of your information on the show notes. We'll definitely add Brain FM on there so that if there are those who are wondering or who have same diagnosis and would like to have some information on another tool that helps navigate throughout the day, we'll make sure that's on there as well. And again, Samantha, I really appreciate all the information that you have shared with us today.
I appreciate you having me on, Michelle.
Of course. It was a learning experience for sure. And I really appreciate you giving us all that insight. So I wish you and your family all the best, safety, with being a military wife.
Thank you. You as well.
Thank you. Thank you again for listening. We'll be back soon with a brand new episode of the Heart Inspired Podcast. Until then, I'm your host, Michelle Delgado. I welcome you to support the show by rating us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcast. To learn more about HeartMetrics Consulting, book a strategy call by visiting the website at heartmetrics.com.